Gary, what did you think of the Mets' performance overall in this series?
Well, I thought Justin Verlander pitched great last night. I thought the bullpen was magnificent both nights, other than Brooks Raley forgetting that there was a runner halfway between third and home. Other than that, not a whole lot went right. Mets put up some early runs on Tuesday and let a 4-run lead get away. The fielding and the base running were at times puzzling, bordering on worse than that. And they were, in my mind, extremely fortunate to get out of there with a split.
Howie, what do you think?
Well, it's certainly not going in any time capsule, that's for sure. When you have a 5-1 lead with Max Scherzer on the mound in the first game, you expect to be able to hold the lead. But that's twice now in a little over a week, or about a week, that the Mets have had 4-run leads against teams that they generally are pretty juiced to play anyway, and saw them get away. And, last night's game is certainly not going into any time capsule, but the best you could say about last night's game is that they escaped with a win. I mean, they tried every conceivable way to lose it. Even on the last play of the game, I think it gets overlooked in the euphoria of what proved to be the game-winning hit, but really Eduardo Escobar needlessly tagged up on that fly ball because there was one out. You don't generally tag up with one out. You do that with nobody out. And Escobar, with one out, was standing at second base when that ball fell in. So the Mets were, in retrospect, pretty fortunate to get that run home, but they'll take it and move on now against a team that's struggling even worse than they are, the Cardinals.
Well, it's so interesting because the 2022 Mets, with Buck, first-year manager of them, like so much attention to detail. They had so much pride in doing all of the little things right, being so focused. The 2023 Mets seem to be night and day of that. So why do you think they've been struggling so much with the little things, Gary?
Well, I think it's gotten worse over the last few weeks. I think actually the Mets played heads up ball for the first month and a half, even when they weren't winning. Their pitching obviously has struggled for a good portion of the season, and their offense has been spotty. But I think as the losing has increased over the last couple of weeks, I think there's been a tendency for players to try to do too much. And I think we've seen that in a lot of realms. The ball that Nimmo didn't catch on Tuesday night, he's thinking about throwing the ball to third before he catches the ball. McNeil throwing the ball to first when he had no chance to turn double play yesterday. Things like the Nimmo rounding second without having a notion of where Vientos was in front of him on the bases. Those are all things to me that are emblematic of a team that is trying too hard, that's not paying attention to detail, that the losses are starting to get to them in that way. And we've seen that in some at-bats too, where guys are chasing out of the strike zone, trying to be heroes. And so when you're in a losing streak, those things tend to snowball. And I think that's what we've seen of late.
Howie, do you think that this is something that Buck needs to fix, or do you think this is completely on the players on their own?
It's a question that everybody asks whenever a team gets into the kind of funk the Mets are in right now. What about the manager? Does anybody really think that Buck Showalter, who's been considered one of the best minds in this game for a couple of decades, suddenly lost his mind over a 4-month off season? The team's not playing well. I'm not sure, what Buck can do to change some of, and I agree completely with what Gary said, the malaise that overtakes a team that makes it look like they're not focused, when I think it's really more the opposite that's, in play, with everybody trying to do a little bit too much. I don't know how you do it. I don't know that, he tried a closed door meeting and it turned out prior to a win in Pittsburgh last week. But, ultimately things just need to settle down a little bit. And I'm not suggesting that the Cardinals of all teams are going to be the panacea, but they've been struggling so badly too. Maybe the timing is right for the Mets to start to get healthy this weekend. But I don't look at much of this as a reflection on the manager at all. But I'm kind of the last guy to ask that question about, because I have always felt that managers get way too much blame when teams start to go south.